hatred blinded her until life taught her a painful lesson. What would you do if the person you rejected for years became the only one willing to save you? Today's story is about a mother named Elara, whose fear became hatred, whose pride became a prison, and whose greatest enemy became her greatest savior. This is a tale that will shake you to your core. Stay until the end, because the lesson hidden in this story will change how you see love, fear, and forgiveness forever. But before we dive in, if you love powerful stories that touch the soul, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story matters too. In a quiet village where paths were worn smooth by generations of footsteps, there lived a woman named Elara. Long before her story became a whispered warning, she was simply known as the woman who stayed behind. When sickness took her husband without warning, the village mourned for 7 days. Prayers were spoken, tears were shed, and slowly life returned to its rhythm. But for Elara, life never truly returned. Her husband's death left her with 3 sons and a silence that echoed through her home. The youngest, Kalen, was only 3 years old. He did not understand death. He only knew that the arms that once lifted him high would never do so again. Each night he called for a father who would never answer, and each night Elara held him close, swallowing her grief so her children would not see her break. From that day forward, Elara became more than a mother. She became a wall between her sons and the world. She worked harder than anyone in the village, rising before the sun and resting long after it disappeared. Though she loved all her sons, her heart clung most tightly to the last-born. Kalen was the child fate almost stole from her twice, once through death and again through a life without a father. That night she made a promise to herself, a promise born from pain and love. Nothing would ever hurt him, not if she could stop it. She did not know then that promises made in fear often demand a heavy price. Time passed, as it always does, quietly and without apology. Elara's sons grew tall and strong, shaped by her sacrifices and her strict guidance. The 2 older ones soon found love and brought wives home. The village celebrated, drums echoed through the night, and Elara surprised everyone with the warmth she showed her daughters-in-law. She welcomed them with open arms. She gifted them with cloth and jewelry. She thanked the spirits for bringing joy back into her home. Neighbors praised her, saying hardship had made her kind. And for a while it seemed true. But when her older sons moved into their own homes, the house grew quieter. Only Kalen remained. Elara watched him more closely than ever before. She noticed every sigh, every silence, every change in his tone. She reminded him often of how much she had sacrificed, not with anger, but with expectation. Kalen loved his mother deeply. He respected her strength and honored her struggles. Yet, as he grew older, he felt an invisible weight resting on his heart. He did not know how to explain it, only that his life did not feel entirely his own. Still, life moved forward, and love, patient and unexpected, found its way to him. The day Kalen spoke of marriage, Elara's heart seemed to lock up. He spoke gently, respectfully, telling her of a woman who brought him peace and laughter. He spoke of shared values, of kindness, of a future he wished to build. But when he mentioned that the woman was not from their village, Elara's expression changed. Her mind filled with stories she had heard and fears she had nurtured for years. Women from faraway places, she believed, did not understand their ways. They left when things became hard. They broke hearts and disappeared. "No," she said firmly. "You must choose a woman from here, one who knows our people." Kaylin tried to reason with her. He reminded her that even she had once come from another place and learned their ways. He explained that love was not bound by land or origin. But with every word he spoke, Elara's fear grew stronger. What Kaylin offered as understanding, Elara heard defiance. By the end of that conversation, something fragile between them had cracked, and fear, when unattended, rarely remains gentle. Days passed, and her worry transformed into resentment. She began to imagine the young woman as careless and ungrateful, though she had never truly met her. Each night, Elara told herself she was protecting her son. Each morning, her heart hardened a little more. The village noticed her change. Her words became sharper, her tone less patient. What began as concern now sounded like bitterness. And bitterness, once planted, grows quietly and relentlessly. Kaylin pleaded again and again, but each plea only strengthened his mother's resolve. With a heavy heart, he sought out his uncle, Joran, Elara's brother. Joran was a man known for calm judgment and thoughtful silence. He listened as Kaylin spoke, never interrupting, never condemning. When Kaylin finished, the room remained quiet for a long moment. Then Joran said, "Fear should not decide the fate of love. If your mother cannot bless your marriage, I will. No heart should be imprisoned to protect another's peace." Those words brought Kaylin relief, but they carried consequences. When Elara learned that her brother had given his blessing, she felt betrayed. In her eyes, everyone had chosen against her fears, against her sacrifices, against her love. And so, with her heart closed tight, Elara made a decision, one that would follow her for many years to come. The day of Kaylin's wedding arrived wrapped in music and celebration. Drums echoed through the village. The bride stood radiant, her eyes filled with both joy and quiet nervousness. But one presence was painfully absent. Elara did not come. While laughter filled the air, Elara sat alone in her hut, listening to distant sounds she pretended not to hear. She told herself that her absence was a lesson, that Kaylin would understand the weight of disobedience. Yet when night fell and silence returned, the emptiness felt heavier than before. After the wedding, Kaylin and his wife built a modest home not far from Elara's hut. The bride encouraged him to visit his mother often, hoping time would soften her heart. But Elara refused every invitation. She did not cross their doorway, did not ask about their lives. When neighbors spoke of the young woman's kindness, Elara dismissed their words. She convinced herself that distance was protection. In truth, it was isolation she was nurturing. And then the children came. When the first child was born, the elders announced a naming ceremony. Invitations were sent to all family members. Elara did not attend. When the second child arrived, again she stayed away. When the third was born, still she refused. She never held the babies, never spoke their names, never acknowledged their existence. To her, they were reminders of a union she refused to accept. When the daughter-in-law sent a beautifully woven cloth as a gesture of respect, Elara burned it without hesitation. The flames reflected in her eyes, steady and unflinching. The village whispered, as villages always do. Some pitied Elara, others criticized her harshness. But Elara paid no attention. Pride had wrapped itself tightly around her heart, convincing her that she was right. Each day she repeated the same thought, "I am protecting my son." Yet with each passing year, the distance between her and Kaylin grew. Love did not disappear, but it learned to survive in silence. And silence, though quiet, can be deeply destructive. Old age does not announce its arrival. It comes quietly, like a shadow lengthening at dusk. One morning, Elara woke with a weakness she could not ignore. Her hands trembled, her legs failed her. By midday, she collapsed alone in her hut. Neighbors rushed to her bed, whispering prayers. Illness clung to her body, and for the first time since her husband's death, Elara felt truly helpless. As night fell, she stared at the empty doorway of her hut. For years she had chosen solitude. Now solitude had chosen her. Word of her illness spread quickly. Messages were sent to her sons, and soon the two older ones arrived with their wives. They stood by her bed, offering concerned words and gentle touches. But when the question of care arose, the room grew uncomfortable. One daughter-in-law spoke of children she could not leave. Another mentioned a home too small for an ailing elder. Their voices were polite, their excuses carefully chosen. Yet beneath them lay a simple truth. They did not want the burden. These were the women Elara had welcomed with gifts and praise. Now, when she could no longer help herself, they slowly stepped away. One by one, they left her hut, and the door closed softly behind them. Then a quiet voice broke the silence. "She can stay with us." All eyes turned toward Kalen's wife, the woman Elara had rejected for years. She stood calmly, her expression neither proud nor bitter. She did not speak of duty or forgiveness. She simply offered help. The woman whose gifts she had burned, whose children she had ignored, whose presence she had denied, was offering her a home. Elara's chest tightened. Pride urged her to refuse, but weakness overpowered pride, and fear silenced her anger. With nowhere else to go, she nodded slowly. That night, Elara was carried into the home she had avoided for so long, unaware that this step would change her more than illness ever could. Life in her son's home was nothing like she expected. No harsh words greeted her, no cold glances followed her steps. Instead, warm meals were placed before her, medicines were given gently, clean clothes were prepared each morning. The daughter-in-law spoke respectfully, never reminding Elara of the past, and the children she had never acknowledged, laughed and called her grandmother with pure affection. Elara watched closely, waiting for anger to surface, for kindness to crack, but day after day, it remained steady. This confused her more than cruelty ever could. Though her body slowly regained strength, Elara's heart stayed guarded. She observed every movement, every word, convinced that kindness was only a mask. But moments passed, then weeks. No bitterness appeared, no resentment surfaced. At night, Elara lay awake listening to the quiet breathing of the household. Guilt stirred in places she had long kept sealed. She began to wonder if hatred had blinded her more than fear ever had. The children were the first to break through her defenses. They held her hands, asked her stories, and sat beside her without judgment. They did not know of burned gifts or missed ceremonies. To them, she was simply grandmother. Their laughter softened something within her. As seasons passed, Elara's mind grew heavier than her body. Each act of kindness she received weighed on her conscience. Every gentle word echoed against memories of cold rejection. She began to realize that fear had guided her choices more than wisdom ever had. Regret became her silent companion, walking beside her wherever she went. And then, illness returned. This time, it did not come quietly. Pain gripped her body. The healer's visits grew more frequent. Elara understood the message her body was sending. Her journey was nearing its end. With what strength remained, Elara asked that family and friends be called, her sons, her daughters-in-law, even her brother Joran. As they gathered around her bed, the room filled with heavy silence. Everyone sensed that Elara had something important to say. With a trembling voice, she began to speak. My actions were not born of hatred, but of fear. Fear shaped by loss. Fear of losing the son I raised alone since he was 3 years old. Tears traced her weathered face. When I needed help, she said quietly, looking at the women she once favored, you turned away. No anger colored her voice, only truth. Then she turned her gaze to the daughter-in-law seated beside her bed. Her eyes filled with tears as realization finally settled in her heart. I was wrong. Fear blinded me. I judged you without knowing your heart. I punished you for a pain you never caused. You showed me kindness when I showed you cruelty. For that, I am deeply sorry. The daughter-in-law squeezed Elara's hand gently. I never hated you. I only hoped one day you would see me. There was no accusation in her words, no triumph, only sincerity. Forgiveness filled the room like quiet light, lifting a burden that had grown heavy over many years. For the first time in a long while, Elara's heart felt at peace. In the days that followed, Elara's strength faded, but she did not fade in fear. She spent her final moments surrounded by the family she once divided and the love she once rejected. When she passed, it was peaceful. Long after Elara was gone, her story remained. Elders told it to young mothers and fathers, reminding them that fear, when left unchecked, can destroy the very love it seeks to protect. They spoke of how kindness outlives pride, how forgiveness heals wounds pride cannot, and how the hearts we push away are sometimes the ones meant to save us. Elara's story teaches us that it's never too late for forgiveness, never too late to let love win over fear. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Remember, the ones we push away may be the ones meant to save us. Thank you for watching. Until next time, choose love over fear.